Arrested for a DUI and you failed the field sobriety test? Well, guess what? That does not mean you're guilty. The standardized field sobriety tests, the eye test, the walk and turn, and the one leg stand, they are not perfect. Here are 10 ways the Marc Lopez law firm regularly fights standardized field sobriety tests. The number one way we fight the standardized field sobriety test: improper administration of the test. Officers love to give field sobriety tests because it comes with an air of authority and they've been trained and they like to demonstrate that authority. However, those tests must be given in a certain way. For the eye test, the stimulus must be 10 to 15 inches slightly above eye level. There's so many different nuanced things here. They have to do a pre-test, 2 seconds out, 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, 2 seconds in. They're checking for, there's so many things that can go wrong. And these officers love to do that. And it's the same thing with the walk and turn and the one leg stand. They have to be given in the exact way the manual states how to give them. Otherwise, they're no longer standardized and they don't mean anything. So one of the best things that we love to do here at this law firm is get officers into our office for deposition. And we ask them, hey, demonstrate the SFSTs. And those guys literally, some of them get some pretty big eyes. Well, I normally have my cheat sheet with me. Oh, so you're looking at the cheat sheet? You're not looking at my client? How can you grade them? Oh, well, refresh my... I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it because it shows the officers probably aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Again, the standardized field sobriety tests, if done correctly, are a pretty good source of impairment. However, they must be done perfectly. Otherwise, they're not standardized and they mean nothing. The second way we love to challenge standardized field sobriety tests is looking at the actual testing conditions. Standardized field sobriety tests were originally developed in a lab. Nice lighting, people were given doses of alcohol, perfectly level floor, cars weren't driving by, there wasn't noise coming by. So many different things, lab setting versus real life. But we understand they're designed to be used in the field. However, were these tests given at the side of the road at a slant? Are we asking someone to walk in a straight line when the road is slanted? What's going on with the actual scene? Did the officer check if there's debris? Sometimes these officers get clever. Well, you can take your shoes off if you like. Oh, so you're walking on the side of a road on bare feet or with socks with gravel? We love challenging the testing conditions because it yields so much fun stuff for us, typically not fun for the state. And then also for the eye test, there's something called optokinetic nystagmus. Google that. But if lights come flashing at you, well, your eyes are going to twitch. That's why the good officers actually turn off, I call them the disco lights, the red and blue lights that are flashing at a person. However, they can't account for cars driving by. I love to see the field sobriety test on the side of the road on the body cam because officers say, well, no, Mark, I don't believe too many cars drove by. I don't think that would cause an issue. And you see the cars coming by on the body cam or the dash cam. So we're looking at the testing conditions. And again, what we're trying to do is show that these results were not fair for our clients. And if the testing conditions are unfair, well, the results are compromised. The third way this law firm loves to attack standardized field sobriety tests, we look for medical conditions for why a person might have failed the field sobriety test. Well, for the eye test, they're looking for jerking of the eye. There's 40 documented reasons why I might jerk, alcohol being very low on the scale of those. In fact, if you go to a doc and you ask that doctor, would you ever use nystagmus to determine alcohol impairment? That doctor will look at you like you're an idiot. How do I know that? Because I've represented doctors and nurses, and they look at me like I'm an idiot when I tell them the eye test is testing for alcohol impairment. They're like, Mark, that's not what it's for. They're testing for head injury. And head injury is, in fact, one of the reasons someone could actually have nystagmus. But there's 40 different reasons why, alcohol just being one of the smallest ones. Now, the walk and turn one-legged stand, I give the manual credit. The manual does state that elderly and the people overweight are going to have problems with the one-leg stand and the walk and turn. Additionally, they just might have problems because they're older. As you get older, you're going to have more injuries. And again, those tests were designed in a lab. People were injury-free. They didn't have leg issues. They didn't have knee injuries from sports. They didn't have head injuries causing nystagmus. So there's so many medical issues that can explain away these field sobriety tests. And we're always looking to exploit those medical reasons if it benefits our client. The fourth way we attack the standardized field sobriety test at the Marc Lopez law firm is by attacking the subjective interpretation by the officer. These tests are, hey, if somebody is swaying, well, that's a clue for they're failing X test. If the eye is jerking, well, that's a clue they failed the HGN. If their hands rise more than 2 inches from their side, that's a clue for the failing. There are so many different ways officers are supposed to be grading this test and supposed to be watching. And you'd be surprised. An officer saying, hey, 10 to 15 inches above eye level means this. No, it's not. Hey, what's 2 inches to you, officer? What's a swaying? What is putting the foot down? Hey, show us how you told them to do the turn on the 9-step walk and turn. Because we want to see what the officer thinks is a failure. And because we've seen so many drunk driving cases and we've seen these field sobriety tests. In fact, myself and a few others at this law firm have received training on the actual field sobriety test administration. We can kind of see when an officer is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe they're trying. I'm not saying they're not trying, but because they do so many of these so often, sometimes they give a subjective interpretation just wrong or not correct. And we like to use that subjective interpretation to our client's advantage. So we are looking for officers to constantly, when they come into this office for depositions, we ask them, demonstrate, what do you think? What's going on? Give us what you believe that to be. And a lot of these officers, they love to show off. Oh yeah, let's fall like this. Okay, well, is that a clue? What are the clues for this? We just love to attack the subjective interpretations of officers, and it helps our clients all the time. The fifth way we attack the standardized field sobriety test here at the Marc Lopez law firm is by just going through the officer's training and certification. When did they get training? What year did they get training on? The standardized field sobriety test with the NHTSA National Highway Traffic Safety Administration standardized field sobriety test manual, it changes. There are different yearbooks out saying, hey, this is what updated, this is not so updated. Now, there hasn't been a giant change on the HGN and the walk and turn, but they have added things and they've taken things away that help people. But I want to see what year they've had training. And not only did they originally get the training, when was the last time they got re-up training? Just because you got training in 1999 doesn't mean you're still good at it in 2025. So a lot of officers will get a refresher course every 2 years. When was that refresher course? And we love to show that an officer got training and they got lots of refresher courses and they're still doing it wrong, because that shows they're just going through the motions. And if the officer is not doing the field sobriety test correct, the fact finder, judge, or jury shouldn't put too much faith into that field sobriety test. The sixth way the Marc Lopez law firm likes to fight standardized field sobriety test is by showing non-impairment explanation for observed behaviors. That's a fancy way of saying, couldn't it be from something other than alcohol or drugs? And the answer most often is yes. Well, Mark, they had red, bloodshot eyes at 2 a.m. Of course they did. That's why they call them red eye flights. People work a full day and they hang out with friends on the limited time they have Friday and Saturday. Yeah, at 2 a.m, their eyes are going to be bloodshot. That's called life. Well, Mark, they were very nervous and they smelled like alcohol. Well, guess what? It's not a crime. It smells like alcohol. And no officer who's been properly trained will tell you, I smelled them, Mark, and I could tell they were intoxicated. That's not how it works. And officers will hardly ever say that. And the ones that do usually try to backtrack pretty quickly at trial. So there's lots of reasons why a person could be exhibiting signs that maybe look like alcohol impairment, but they're not. Tired, worked a full day, they're nervous. Hey, they didn't get out of the car fast enough. Well, Mark, they stumbled out of their car. They're a 5'5" female getting out of a Toyota Tundra. Of course they're going to stumble out of that. There's so many reasons why people might appear to be intoxicated, but it's explainable by other things. And then the state of Indiana argues the opposite. Well, it could also be alcohol. Yeah, it could. But we're looking for reasonable explanations, and we're looking to constantly attack for non-impairment explanations for the observed behavior by the officer. The seventh way the Marc Lopez law firm likes to attack the standardized field sobriety test is by making a deal on unreliable or missing video footage. Most police officers have body cams, dash cams, and then how convenient when the field sobriety tests aren't done or caught on the cameras. I had to stand there and block my car's video because Mark, it was safe. Safety, yeah, that's the ticket. No, if it's not safe to do it at the side of the road with your car watching, then go somewhere else where it is safe. Transport them. That's the bottom line. We love making a big deal about that, especially if video is just, oh, Mark, it failed to record. Oh, how fantastic evidence that would help the jury or judge determine guilt or innocence is just gone, huh? Convenient. So we love making big deals about that, and we attack that anytime we can. The eighth way we attack standardized field sobriety tests are when officers start doing tests that are not standardized. There's only 3 standardized tests: horizontal gaze nystagmus, one leg stand, and the walk and turn. That's it. All other tests are just kind of extra. They're not standardized. They're never tested in a laboratory. But officers like to give these because, well, maybe it's faster, maybe they're quicker about it, maybe it makes people sound better. They couldn't say the ABCs, Mark. They couldn't say the ABCs backwards. What? I couldn't do that right now without thinking about it, especially the officer glaring at me, disco lights in the background in the middle of the night. Well, Mark, they were not able to count from 212 to 202 backwards to my side. What? What are you talking? That's not a standardized test. Well, Mark, they were not able to touch their finger to thumb in a rhythm. When I told them to start from the index finger and go backwards and touch the pinky. What? These are real tests. Officer asking people to do. It's garbage. So if they use garbage tests, they're going to get garbage results. And we love making a big deal about that. Remember, the only tests that matter, though: horizontal gaze nystagmus, one leg stand, and the walking. Anything else is just nonsense. The 9th way the Marc Lopez law firm likes to attack the standardized field sobriety test are attacking the officer's failure to consider non-alcohol impairment. Are they having a diabetic episode and they're going through some sort of ketosis? Or are they having a mental episode, and maybe that's why they're not responding to your satisfaction? Are they going through trauma because something just happened to them and they're escaping a bad situation, but they're acting in a weird manner that makes the officer think alcohol? Because these things can sometimes overlap. It's not easy to look at something and say alcohol, trauma, diabetes, alcohol. I mean, they overlap. And so officers, sometimes when they're on their DUI patrol ground and they're looking for DUI, they fail to consider other things that are going on. And we love to make a big deal about these things, especially if somebody has gone through this and we can give evidence that there's another reason why they might be acting like this, and it's not due to alcohol. The 10th way the Marc Lopez law firm loves to fight the standardized field sobriety test, but we love attacking the stop. Because if we can kick out the stop, well, it doesn't matter about the field sobriety test, because the officers should not have stopped the actual individual. We're looking for any and everything we can. I've personally seen so many crazy things at this law firm. Officer gets mad because a person doesn't stop fast enough. The person wanted to stop in a well-lit area, so they drove like an extra half mile, pulled over. Officer draws out of their firearm. And guess what? That's an illegal stop. It's an illegal stop. You have no business doing that. Court of Appeals says you can't do that. We have seen officers make mistakes for what a traffic violation is. And guess what? There's a lot of wiggle room with mistake, but if an officer's flat out wrong about something, that's not a valid stop. We've seen so many different things here, and that's the fun part. Kicking out the stop. Because if you kick out the stop, well, everything else just kind of goes bye-bye. So if you have been arrested for a DUI and you failed the field sobriety test, or someone's telling you you failed the field sobriety test, or you're seeing your police report, oh, it looks like I failed. No. There's lots of explaining to do, lots of ways to talk about field sobriety tests, lots of ways to attack those field sobriety tests. Now, we both know with a DUI, there's probably a blood alcohol test or a breath ticket. Got to take care of that too. But don't ever feel like your case is hopeless because you failed the field sobriety test. If you have any questions about drunk driving offense, DUI, DWI, it's all the same thing here, called OVWI in Indiana. Give me a call, 317-632-3642. I will talk about drunk driving offense all day. It is a passion of mine, along with every single lawyer here at this firm. But most importantly, remember, always play the fifth.